Good morning, grade 6 students, and welcome to another class of English. We are in day 1. It's the 18th of October 2020, Sunday. Today we're going to have our revision on the past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. Our references are the Pupils Book, pages 5 and 23, workbook page 32. Here are the objectives. At the end of the lesson, the students should be able to 1. Recall how to form the simple past, past continuous, and past perfect. 2. Identify the uses of each form of verb in the past. And 3rd, write them in sentences correctly. Let us begin by revising the past simple. Take a look at the following sentences. He had a keypal 2 years ago. He only wrote 1 letter. Had is the past form of the verb has or have, while wrote is the past form of the verb write. These two are both irregular verbs, and as we know, irregular verbs are those verbs when changed to its past form changes its spelling. They are called irregular verbs. Let us now move on to the past perfect tense of the verb. Past perfect is formed by having the had as the auxiliary verb plus the past participle form of the verb. Also, it uses the simple past tense in another part of the sentence. Take a look at this example. After he had returned to Italy, he wrote about his travels. The past perfect tense of the verb in this sentence is it has the auxiliary verb had and the past participle returned. And on the other part of the sentence, it uses the past simple form of the verb, which is wrote. Same thing in the next sentence. He had made several journeys before he discovered Lake Victoria. Had made is the past perfect tense of the verb since it uses the auxiliary verb had followed by the past participle form of the verb made. Also, in another part of the sentence, it uses the past tense discovered. On the third sentence, no one had traveled along the Silk Road until Marco Polo made the journey. So the past perfect tense here is had traveled. Auxiliary verb had plus the past participle form of the verb traveled. In another part of the sentence, it uses made, which is the past tense of the verb. And here are the uses of the past tenses. We have here the simple past tense. Examples: I drank tea. He finally got a new job. The simple past tense is used to describe a finished activity that began in the past and the time is also over. Let us now move on to the past continuous tense. Examples: I was drinking tea. I was eating my dinner when they came to my home. Past progressive tense is used to describe an ongoing activity in the past. Past perfect tense. I had drank tea. He had drank tea before they came. The past perfect tense is used to indicate the first one of two actions which happened in the past. Let us now see these examples of the verb tenses used in sentences. So here are the forms of statement, negative, and question or interrogative, while you have there the tenses as such as past simple, past continuous, past perfect. So if we have the past simple under the statement form or affirmative, we say Tony drove the lorry. But if we want to make it negative, then we say Tony did not drive the lorry. And to make it into question, we say, did Tony drive the lorry? So remember that if you are using the past simple of the verb, you should be able to change the spelling of the word from its present form if it is an irregular verb. But if it is a regular verb, you just have to change it to or change it by adding d or ed. But when the verb ends with e, automatically you will be adding only d to a regular verb. So let's have now the past continuous. Past continuous statement form. So we say Tony was driving the lorry. Since Tony is singular, we use the helping verb was plus the verb in its ing form. So from drive, it becomes driving. So Tony was driving the lorry. If it is past continuous negative form of a sentence, so we say Tony was not driving the lorry. So we put not in between the verbs, helping verb and the main verb to make it negative. But you can also put it in a contracted form like wasn't. So Tony wasn't driving the lorry if you want to do so. And if you wish to have it in a question from the past continuous, then we simply make the helping verb at the beginning of the sentence followed by the subject. So we have, was Tony driving the lorry? So as I said a while ago, was, helping verb was is for singular subject, while they is for the plural subject. What about if we're using the past perfect tense of the verb? How would we make it in the statement form? So simple, like Tony had driven the lorry when the trickle burst out. So here, the past perfect tense of the verb uses had or auxiliary verb had followed by the past participle form of the verb. So in this manner, we say Tony had driven the lorry when the trickle burst out. So if you notice, there are two verbs there, one in the past perfect, the other one in the past. So it happens that there are two verbs in the sentence, but one is past perfect and then the other one should be in the simple past. Okay, so let's continue. To make it negative, we just say Tony had not driven the lorry when the trickle burst out. So we put not in between had and driven. So we could also say they hadn't driven the lorry when the trickle burst out. And lastly, we have here, had Tony driven the lorry when the trickle burst out? So you have there had driven. So since we use the subject Tony, so it goes in between Tony, or had Tony driven the lorry when the trickle burst out. So remember that in the past perfect, had plus past participle of the verb. And if you still have another part of the sentence, it could use the simple past form of the verb. Let us try to go back on your exercises, Unit 5 revision, page 31. We have this activity to complete sentences with the verbs in brackets. We will put one of the verb in the past simple and one in the past continuous. Let us take a look at the first sentence. Harry blank a busy street when a car blank him. So the verbs to be used are cross and hit. So which of this will have the past simple and which one will have the past continuous? Okay, let's make it as an example. So Harry was crossing a busy street when a car hit him. So which means to say that the past continuous was Harry crossing a busy street. So this is a continuous action. While this was happening, another past action happened, which is Harry was hit by a car. Let us now move on to the second sentence. When Mr. Gordon blank home, the family blanked their dinner. So we have the verbs come and eat. So which do you think will have the past continuous form of the verb and the past simple? Which action is continuing while another past action happened? All right, let's see if your answer is correct. When Mr. Gordon came home, the family was eating their dinner. Okay, so moving on, let's have number 3. Sally blank on a warm jacket because a cold wind blank. So, which of these verbs will be used with a past simple and past continuous? You can write your answers. All right, let's see if you get it correctly or if you got it correctly. So we say Sally was putting on a warm jacket because a cold wind blew. So this is where the past form is. Sally was the continuing action and blew is the past simple or the action that happened or finished while another past action was going on. Let's move on to the fourth one. She suddenly blanked that it blanked too. So, can you write your answers, please? Okay, it's time to check your answers. She suddenly saw that it was snowing too. Did you get it correctly? Let us now move on to the last one. It blank, so Mr. Gordon or Mrs. Gordon blank an umbrella. So did you say was raining and took? Good, if you did so. It was raining, so Mrs. Gordon took an umbrella. Let us now go to this activity where we are going to use the following verbs to form sentences as instructed. Let us do the first one. The verb in this first number is talk, and we were asked to make it or use the past perfect tense of the verb in a negative form. So let's try this one. If we have the past perfect, we're supposed to use the auxiliary verb had followed by the past participle form of the verb, and negative, there should be the word no, not, or never. So let us try. He had not talked to his father about his lost watch. So in this case, it follows the negative form of the verb in the past perfect. So it says there, had not talked. So this comes with the past perfect, which is had, auxiliary verb had, plus the past participle form of the verb talked, and negative form not. So if you're used to writing these sentences, you could just simply contract the had not to hadn't. So you could say he hadn't talked to his father about his lost watch. Let's move on to the second one. It's play. Used it in past perfect, this time in question form. You can think about your answer and try it. So I will show you if this is the answer that you have in your mind or the answer that you have written on your books or on your notebooks, I mean. So let's have there. Had he played football since he was 5 years old? So this is a question, and it uses the past perfect tense of the verb had played. Had played, and it is a question because you started with the auxiliary verb had followed by the subject. So had he played football since he was 5 years old? Third one is wash. So this time you use it in past continuous statement form. So think again of the past continuous. How do we form it? We form the past continuous by adding auxiliary verb or helping verb was or were. Was when the subject is singular, were if the subject is plural, followed by the verb and its ing form. So we say, this is just a sample answer. Take note, he was washing clothes when the rain poured. So past continuous was washing. And it is a statement form because it tells something that he was washing clothes when the rain poured. Fourth statement, you're asked to write simple past, this time in a negative form. Remember what a simple past is? Simple past is formed when the verb is regular. We add d or ed to the regular verb. If the verb is irregular, the verbs, when changed to past or past participle, would need to be changed in spelling or sometimes retain its spelling. So let us try to give the answer. So past simple, negative form. So we say, he did not write to his kipao. So you say that one, he did not write, meaning negative of the simple pasts. Let's move on to the last one. This time, the action word or the verb is iron. So we will use it in past continuous, same as number 3, but this time it's a question form. So don't forget the past continuous must have was or were plus the verb in its ing form. And if it is a question, we just transposed or put at the beginning the helping verb was or were followed by the subject. So let us try now. Was she ironing when the lights went off? See, was she ironing? Was ironing is the past continuous, but since it is a question, we interchange the position of the subject and the helping verb. Was she? So it should be was she instead of she was if it is a present or past simple in the statement form, but this time it is negative, so we say rather question form, so we say, was she ironing when the lights went off? So you start with the helping verb followed by the subject followed by the verb in its ing form, then you form past continuous in the question form. Let us now use these verbs find and move in order to come up with statement in the simple past, negative statement in the past continuous, and question form in the past perfect. So let us try the first one. This is a simple past statement, so we say she found it from the verb found or from the verb find. This is an irregular form of verb, so therefore it changed its spelling. So you have there simple past. Let's have it in the negative statement. So from the statement we say she did not find it. So you see did becomes the carrier of the simple past. It carries the past form of the verb. So if you notice, found in the statement form becomes find in the negative statement. Why? Because you already used did in that sentence, so that already shows that the verb is in the past. Let's move on to the question form. So we say, did she find it? Okay. So you just interchange the subject and the auxiliary verb did. Let's move on to past continuous. She was finding it. So you have there in the past continuous was, because the subject is she, and was must be followed by the verb in its ing form. Next, she was not finding it. This is in the negative statement because of not. So this is past continuous, but it is negative. So we added she was not finding it. So question now, why she? Was she finding it? So you are interchanging only the subject and the helping verb was, since the subject is singular, she. Let's move on to past perfect. So we say in the past perfect we use had plus the past participle form of the verb. So we say she had found it. Next, in the negative statement, so we say she had not found it. So you have there the negative word not, and to make it a question we say had she found it. So same thing we did with the past continuous and the simple past. We interchange the places of the subject and the helping verb or the auxiliary verb. All right, students, I think you are now ready for the activities answers. So let us continue. Remember that we have the verb move here, which we are going to use for the statement, negative statement, and question under the simple past, past continuous, and the past perfect tense of the verb. Now, let us use it in statement. We have their move in the present form and then they in the plural form of a subject. So, under the statement past tense, we have they moved the bed. So the verb move becomes moved. It is added rather with D. Since it is a verb that ends with E, to make it past form, we add D, not ED. Okay, so let's move on to the negative statement. They did not move the bed. So in here, Move is already in its base form because we already used the auxiliary verb did, which carries out the simple past form of the verb. And make it negative, we have the word not. So if you want to contract it, it is also acceptable to say they didn't move the bed. As long as you have there your simple past form, which is did move, plus the negative form of the verb, then that would become a negative statement. Just make the sentence logical and the words in order. So they did not move the bed. Let's make it a question. We interchange the auxiliary verb with the subject. So we say, did they move it? Or you can say, did they move the bed? That's also an answer to that. Let's continue with the past continuous. So we have their move. So if we want to make it past continuous, we have they were moving the bed. So remember, when it is in the past and we want it past continuous, we use the helping verbs was for singular, subject, followed by a verb in its ing form. If the subject is plural, we use the auxiliary verb or the helping verb were plus the verb in its ing form. So in here, we have were moving as the past continuous. Since the subject is plural they, we have to use the helping verb were. So they were moving the bed. Next one, we say they were not moving the bed. So in here, to make it negative, we just add the word not. Or again, we can make a contraction to make it a little bit shorter. So you say they weren't moving the bed. And to lastly, to have it as a question, we can say, were they moving the bed? Same as the others, we interchange the position of the subject and the helping verb if there is, or the auxiliary verb if there is in the sentence. Let's move on. Past perfect. We say they had moved the bed. So if you noticed, you have there the auxiliary verb had followed by the past participle form of the verb, because this is how past perfect tense must be written. So let's move on. They had not moved the bed. So this is negative again. Or you can say contract had and not. So you say hadn't. So they hadn't moved the bed. And the last one, question form, interchange the auxiliary verb with the subject. So had they moved the bed? This is the question form. All right, students. I hope you understand everything that has been recalled in the practice exercises we had. I hope it will help you in answering your midterm examination. So this has been your teacher for today's class, Miss Annalisa, saying goodbye and keep safe, everyone.